Okay, what's going on, you guys? Welcome back to another episode of the Fortnite Mythbusters. So Fortnite actually added tornadoes into the game, which made for so many awesome myths. So just like always, if you do have a myth you would like me to test in the next or future episodes of the Fortnite Mythbusters, make sure to go down in the comments and drop a comment of that myth for a pretty good chance to be featured. As well, if you do enjoy today's video, make sure to leave a like. Let's see if we could smash 1,760 likes. That would be insane. Also, don't forget to subscribe and turn on those post notifications to never miss another Fortnite Mythbusters episode. Anyways, without further ado, let's get right on in to today's video. Kicking things off, jumping straight into the first myth. The first myth is, will 2 shield kegs regenerate your shield at twice the speed compared to only 1? If you remember the cozy campfire from Fortnite chapter 1, if you had multiple of them placed down all around your player, you would heal way faster than as if you only had 1. I tried the exact same thing but with the shield keg, and on the left side I only had 1. On the right side I threw down 2 shield kegs where I stood in the direct center. I made it so you could see the health a little bit easier up at the top of the screen, but even if there are multiple shield kegs, it'll only heal you at the same rate as if you only had 1. So you definitely want to keep this in mind. You do not want to waste a shield keg because you might think you heal faster when in reality you don't. Definitely a very good myth and one that you will all use in game, I'm sure. Going into the next myth and the first tornado myth. This myth is the tornado strong enough to destroy armored walls? Now, if you've gotten the chance to find a tornado in game and seen it actually go through a POI or even some buildings, it'll absolutely destroy straight through them. Trying this out in game, I tried to get in front of the tornado and place down as many armored walls as I possibly could. The tornado picked me up. I was flying in the air, but I was still able to see that the tornado did destroy some of the armored walls. Now, I think one of the armored walls was a little bit out of the path, but it was good to see that the armored wall was still at 2,500 HP, which tells us a lot about the tornado on how it doesn't slowly do damage to the walls. Instead of a building, an armored wall, whatever it is in its path, it'll destroy it in an instant. Going into the next myth and a highly requested myth. This myth is, will the shield keg heal a player through an armored wall? Now, the shield keg is unique because you could throw it down literally anywhere on the floor. It doesn't have to be in the direct center like how a launch pad or a campfire has to be, which makes it kind of interesting regarding the zones where you could actually heal from it. Trying this out in game, it was actually difficult to find a shield keg as well as an armored wall together, but I managed to do it. I placed down the armored wall. I was healing from the shield keg. I went on the other slide, slowly walked into the blue zone, and I was shocked to see that it was still healing my player. I even went on the other side of it to see maybe if it was just the range. I placed down a regular wall and it was still healing me. The shield keg will heal a player within an entire block radius. Definitely something to keep in mind, especially in Fortnite endgames. If you play competitive, you definitely do not want to be healing the enemies accidentally with the shield keg, so just make sure you place it right. Going into the next myth, is, do vault guards / bosses shield regenerate when they are next to the shield keg? This myth was actually difficult to do because I cannot control the vault guards or the bosses. So basically what I did, I went to the foundation, I cracked its shield where it then almost killed me. I went back for a little bit more, threw down the shield keg, and fortunately he stood next to it for just a couple of seconds where his shield regenerated just a little bit. Now the boss kept moving around, but just that one little tick of shield, even though I cracked him, proves that the shield keg will heal him up. So that's definitely pretty interesting. Going into the next myth is, can you stick a clinger onto a crow that is already flying? Now, clingers are back in Fortnite, and if you don't know what it is, it's basically like a sticky grenade. You could throw it onto players, it'll stick to them, and it does a good amount of damage. Now, since they stick to players as well as buildings and stuff, will it stick to a bird that is flying? Trying this out, I basically made a tower up into the air to bait a bird or a crow to come close to me, where I then threw the clinger onto it. And honestly, I felt a little sad doing this. I'm not gonna do it again, but it did stick on to the crow. The crow flew away, where it then was it exploded in air. Don't do this in game, guys. Don't do this. But you could also see the meat fall down to the ground, and whatever player, if someone was beneath, they got a free like 25 HP. Definitely a pretty interesting myth. Who suggested this one? Going straight into the next myth. The next myth is, what happens when you drive a car into a tornado? Now, when you run up into a tornado, it'll automatically suck your player up into the sky, where you then begin skydiving around and eventually it'll push you out of the tornado and you can then glide. But if you are driving a car, what exactly happened? In this case, I just drove a normal sedan into the storm where it then picked my car up, and I had zero control. I was giving it gas, I was trying to move it around, but it was just going with the flow of the tornado. You could then get into the passenger seat, shoot, heal, reload your gun, but if you get high up enough into the tornado, it'll eventually spit the car out, where you will then fall all the way back down to the ground. The car on impact will take a pretty good amount of damage, and you will then have to jump back into the driver's seat, and if your car doesn't explode or break, you can continue driving away. Going into the next myth, the next myth is, will items that are stored in a tent while in a private match transfer over to a public match? Now this is actually a very good myth. I know a whole ton of players are not able to have access to private matches. That's why I wanted to try it out for you all. Doing this myth in game, I basically went into a custom matchmaking game. I was all by myself. It was a normal solos match where I then placed my AR as well as some shields into the tent. I then packed it up and I went on my way. I did not touch the tent for the rest of the game. I then went into a public match right afterwards. I found a tent off spawn where I then placed it down, and it was completely empty. The items did not transfer over one bit. I also tried to see if I could transfer items from a private tent into another private tent, you know, while in private matches, but the items still, even if you are both in private matches, they will not transfer over. Private matches are strictly for that game and that game only. You can't store stuff in tents afterwards. Good to keep in mind, I guess, especially for scrims. Going into another great myth, this myth is, does the flare gun detect vault guards as well as even bosses? The flare gun has been vaulted from Fortnite for easily over a year, and it's pretty good to see it back. I mean, it's pretty overpowered, and I'm not happy with all my builds getting set on fire, but it's still fun to use. In game, I was right next to the foundation. I saw the foundation, shot the flare up into the air where it did scan the area, and for the foundation himself, it'll show a little crown, as well as the vault guards, it'll show a little arrow above their head. So this is definitely a little overpowered, especially early game. If you want to try and find the boss at any POI in the future, the flare gun will help you out with that. Super good. I know sometimes the boss could be hiding around. There's so many different areas where he is, so next time I see a flare gun, that's the first thing that I'm going to do with it. Going into the next myth, is, will the wind around the foundation statue mess up the trajectory of a thrown grenade or even a clinger? In this case, I tried it with just a clinger. That way we could see where it sticks onto a wall to see if the trajectory was actually messed up. Now the statue next to it, it has like a gust of wind. It's basically like a slipstream from Fortnite Chapter 1 as well as some in Chapter 2. I first threw a clinger, didn't notice a single issue with the trajectory once, but it also was a long distance. I then spotted a rock on the other side of the statue where it goes directly through the wind stream, through the clinger, and it landed in the same spot that it was projected to land at. Meaning, with that being said, the wind has no effect on the trajectory, so if you're ever in a fight near this statue, you don't have to worry about that. Going into the next myth, and a pretty fun myth, this myth is, since a flare is a projectile, can you bounce flares off of the spider webs around the Daily Bugle? Now at this POI, the spider webs, if you land on them, it'll bounce you around the map, and with the actual flare bullets from the flare gun being the projectile, can you bounce them from area to area, making it scan maybe more of a range? At first, I shot the spider web directly with a flare where it did not scan the area. In fact, it exploded immediately, set fire, didn't scan one bit, making it completely useless. I then shot the flare up into the air where it did scan the area. The flare slowly fell back down, and the second that it landed on the spider web, I was shocked to see that it continued to bounce up and down, and after the second or third bounce, once it was up into the air, it then despawned and it was gone forever. Still though, a pretty cool myth, and if I saw this in game, I'd be confused. Going into the big myth, this myth is, what happens when a Loot Llama walks into a tornado? Massive shout out to Bear Time for allowing me to use his footage to show you all what exactly happens when a Loot Llama runs into a tornado. The odds of this happening are actually extremely low. He was in the middle of a game and saw a Loot Llama literally having no control in midair. The Loot Llama came into the tornado picked it up, and it was just spinning around in circles as if it was a normal player. Bear Time actually spotted it. He managed to get a few shots off on the llama, doing a little bit of damage, but the llama couldn't do anything. He was just still flying around in circles. Unfortunately, not too long after, the tornado actually despawned, and if you look at his footage a little bit, you will actually see the Loot Llama land in zone, and someone shooting at it actually managed to break it, popping all of the loot. So if you ever see a llama in the tornado, there's still a little bit of hope to get its loot.